Chair will open the meeting at 6:30. This is the July 11th, oh no, it's not July 11th. What's the day?
25th.
July 25th meeting of the Board of Selectmen. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Sullivan.
This time we had a request from a citizen, which this board is pleased to honor, requesting a moment of silence for the recent murders of the police officers in Dallas, Baton Rouge, and Kansas City, and other cities throughout the country at the beginning of. Please have a moment of silence. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Item number 2 is acceptance of minutes. Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we move to accept the minutes as presented dated July 11, 2016.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sullivan, seconded by Mr. Fox. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
The next one is executive minutes of July 11th, 2016.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we accept the minutes from July, executive session minutes from July 11, 2016, but not to be released at this time due to ongoing issues.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sullivan, seconded by Mr. Fox. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Next is executive minutes of July 14th, 2016.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we accept the minutes from executive session July 14, 2016, and again, not to be released at this time due to ongoing issues.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sullivan, seconded by Mr. Joseph. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Executive minutes of March 28th, 2016.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the executive minutes from the Board of Selectmen, March 28, 2016, and I believe these are okay to release.
Please release. Second.
Motion by Mr. Sullivan, seconded by Mr. Fox. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Item 3 on the agenda tonight is appointments and resignations. Item A is Personnel Board, Anne Marie Gray, with a term to expire 6/30/2019.
So move.
Second, Mr. Chair, with regrets that Anne Marie Gray is asking not to be reappointed.
That's an.
Did she change her mind?
Oh, the letter says
Yeah.
not to reappoint.
She said no, and then she said she'd like to stay on, actually.
Also disregard the letter. Okay, Mr.
Okay,
Chair,
so we're
I second it.
so we've moved to appoint, seconded by
Peter motioned.
Mr. Fox. Is there any, with a term to expire June 30th, 2019, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Central Mass Regional Planning Committee Delegate and Alternate. This has been tabled from July 11th. Mr. Valiakonis.
Board members, if you can refer to the letter that's in your packet, July 5th, 2016, it notes that the Board of Selectmen has a delegate. There are 4 quarterly meetings. The board's slot is vacant, and the alternate in the past year was former planning board member Guy Horn. The only requirements, in addition to someone who's interested in planning and furthering their community, is they be a resident.
And a resident, yeah.
And a resident.
Yep.
So I would love to serve, however, not being a resident, I must defer.
You want to move?
Maybe.
Okay.
Never know.
Do you have any recommendations, Mr. Valiakonis?
Not at this time. I was hoping by putting it out there that there would be people that would come forward. Don't know if the board has anyone in mind that you wish to nominate.
Mr. Joseph.
Do you know, Greg, do you know, when do you expect the 19-hour-a-week town planner to be named?
I expect that that person will be named on Wednesday evening, approved by the planning board, and that individual, I've had conversations with him, and he's ready to begin his position next Tuesday.
So
He's ready to proceed immediately. However, he's also not a resident of Dudley.
He's Rhode Island, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, it's from Rhode Island.
can we clarify with the CMRPC if the town planner, who we think is the most appropriate person, serve as an ex officio representative of the town until we can find 2 residents? It just
course.
makes common sense.
Of course.
So let's, the chair, without objection, will table this till the next meeting.
All right, can I ask that be put on the website? Maybe get some interest there, maybe, if someone sees it?
Could I also ask, Mr. Chairman, that on the website, that Greg either do some research, not major research, but come up with the kinds of backgrounds or skills that people who serve in this capacity, and then put that on the website, and that might strike a familiar note with some residents in town.
So if anyone is out there and is watching, this position is available.
Okay, so we'll table it until the next meeting. Okay, item C is reappointment of election, the appointment of election workers with terms to expire August 15th, 2017. And the list presented to us for a motion is Carol Antos, Marion Armstrong, Ann Atkins, Linda Bazinet, Debbie Bazildo, Liz Beals, Josephine Bodieri, Linda Brink, Carol Cook, Emma Cody, Pellegrino, Dioria, Kathy DeRosa, Marianne Devlin, Jim Dunn, Cynthia Ivansky, Catherine Joseph, Laurie Joseph, Judy Joy, Jean Kondek, Alice Kujawski, Evelyn Kuyas, Diana Kazava, Alice Langloy, Margaret Machuga, Diane Mrozinski, Nancy Roy, Jean Samples, Ann Stohai, Marcia Wagner, Norma Waterhouse, Louise Williams, Don Wilson, and Lorraine Winslow.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sullivan, seconded by Mr. Fox. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to abstain from this, only because my wife Laurie is on the list. I just want people to know why I will abstain.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And 1 abstention.
Yes.
Item 4 is public comments, citizens' comments. Is there anyone here tonight who does not have business on the agenda that would like to be heard on another matter? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to Around Town, focusing on local businesses.
Is Corey here? There he is.
Mr. Joseph.
You know, we have, there's a lot, sit down, Corey, relax, take it easy, just don't put your feet on the table. We have a lot of good people who do a lot of good businesses, and Dudley is a good place to live, and that's why we're having folks come in who have businesses in town to let the rest of the people know what they do, where they're located, and maybe plans that they have for the future. So we've asked Corey Brody, who took over a piece of property on West Main Street that had a burned-out building on it. And he has since developed it into a business with a number, and if you drive into that and drive around, you'll see all the different kinds of mulches and stones and landscape things that he has, and I know in talking with him that he's planning on doing more. So, Corey, this is an important time of the year for you, and why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Like you said, basically I purchased the property years ago, leveled and got rid of the structure that was there that was sitting uninhabited, and since then I basically started a small stone gravel kind of sale operation, and since then it is it's expanded quite a bit, and we're now doing pavers and statues and tools, and we provide construction services. We do new construction homes, additions, and pretty much all things construction and dirt related.
Now, didn't I see some containers on your property that have your initials on it, I think?
Yes, also, yeah, now we are, we're doing roll-off dumpsters, yeah, we just keep adding on and keep going.
I just have to tell you, and we're going to run into this because we've all been talking to people. Corey was very nervous about coming here. He said, I don't like talking in public. I said, just relax, tell people what you do, how you built it, any things you're planning on adding, and if you forget something, or we think you're struggling, we'll ask you questions to try to make it a little easier for you. So, just so you know that not everybody who comes here is ready to start selling everything to you right here tonight, you know? What are you planning on doing in the future? What are you planning on adding or changing?
We pretty much, we're going to expand, same sort of things that we're doing. We want to move forward and do pavers, and we also are carrying pipe and fabric and, other construction type items, hay bales and silt fence and things like that. Pretty much just expanding on that, different types of masonry products, and we also carry timbers now.
Landscape timbers?
Yep, landscape timbers. Yep, and anything that seems like it could be of use to the people in town or anyone within our radius. We're willing to always add new things.
And so what do you do over the winter?
We plow snow, and we usually actually do a new construction home. Keeps the guys busy, and keeps us out of the weather as much as we can, and look forward to spring.
Are you going to expand into landscaping, or is it just products right now?
We do have a handful of good landscape contractors that I refer out, and sometimes sub jobs too. So pretty much anything along those lines, we can provide the service or set you up with someone that's qualified that can do a good job for you.
How much competition do you have in town?
Directly in town, there is some. There's not a whole lot. There are some other. There's some other vendors to the east. There's some to the north. There's also to the south and a little bit further on to the west. But we're pretty much the largest in the immediate area.
Mr. Fox.
My wife and I strongly believe that we try to give Dudley businesses our business. And we've been doing business with Mr. Brody's company for about 4 years now. And I can honestly say it's been a pleasurable experience working with him and his staff, the people in the office. If you have any questions, Mr. Brody's always around. He's always helpful. And it's been a very good experience for Betsy and I to do business with your company.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm on the community quite a bit, as everybody probably knows, and your trucks are pretty busy. I see them.
Yeah, especially
empty,
springtime. We have a lot. We're back and forth all over for quite a while.
Yeah, they're never empty. They're always heading out with something in it.
Yeah, back and forth. Yeah, absolutely. We're getting to the time of the year now where it's gotten considerably warmer, and a lot of the initial springtime stuff has slowed down. But now people are moving on to other projects, patios and redoing their driveways and adding on and decks and that sort of thing. And so the dynamics of what we do over the seasons changes, but we stay pretty busy.
I have one question that I'm dying to know the answer to. What kind of stone materials do you have, and are they different sizes?
So
orange stuff or what?
The masonry products we sell Versalock, which is it's a man-made masonry product, split face, so it has the rough texture on the front. They're a standard size, 6 high, 16 long. We also do carry a few different types of natural wall stone. We have some from Connecticut, we have some from the Charlton area, some from Dudley. We try to keep most of it as close as possible. So it's true to the character of the type of architecture and what we have here. We also have some aged wall stone, which basically is wall stone that's been out, and it's got the moss and the discoloration and the darkness of when they've been out for years and years.
What have you, besides the dump trucks and the roll-off dumpsters, what have you got for equipment?
We have a few excavators, which is primarily what do most of our jobs. We install septic systems. We do grading, trenches. install lawns, demolition, pretty much anything along those lines.
Okay, thank you.
So there is a service end to it.
Yeah, there is.
Very good.
Some of that stuff I didn't know.
I'm all set.
Okay.
We did very well tonight, don't we?
All right.
Thank you very much for
Thanks,
coming.
Gordon.
And good luck with your
Thank
continued
you.
success.
Do you have any brochures you can hand out?
Absolutely.
I can leave a couple on the table if
Yeah, why don't you leave them on the table?
I'll go to.
All right.
people are leaving.
Corey, I'll take one of those.
All right.
Thanks very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, Corey.
Thanks,
Corey.
Corey.
It's my
Again.
interest.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I think our next meeting will be, Peter's lined up Rob Roma from Rob's Automotive. Is that right?
Yes. Michelle, he's been contacted? Rob's Automotive?
How are we going to do this proceeding forward, Mr. Chair? Like everyone brings in like a candidate, or are we going to?
Whatever you want.
That's kind of pick our way along. And,
Yeah, pretty much.
oh, it's interesting stuff. I mean,
It is.
sure people drive by, for example, Corey's place all along, probably didn't know half of what he was doing, right?
When it comes to you, you'll know.
All right, just give me a couple days' notice.
Okay, item 6 is the public hearing. I want to make sure we get the right motion here. Are we resuming, are we reopening, are
So
we
you're
continuing?
The last meeting, the board continued to tonight. So I would recommend the board reopen the hearing, take any additional testimony from the public here this evening, and then, once that portion is concluded, suggested a motion to you to vote this evening.
Go ahead. Mr. Chairman? I'd
Mr.
like to
Joseph.
move that we reopen the public hearing and that we continue the public hearing on Chapter 61A until August 8th, 2016, at 7 p.m., and that we do so upon the advice of Town Council due to ongoing discussions that are occurring at this time with the attorneys, between the attorneys.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to second that, and I just also want to repeat and state for the record, at the last meeting, I was made aware of a potential conflict of interest with a family member. Subsequent to that, I asked the Ethics Commission for a written opinion through our counsel. I received a letter from Attorney Brackett. I will be filing a public disclosure letter with the town clerk, but his opinion, and ethics opinion, is at this time, my verbal declaration is okay until that letter gets filed.
That's,
And I'm only doing that to protect the town. I don't want, it's like the 23rd hour, if I didn't know, and somebody comes in at the end and says, oh, you got family over there, and it could convolute the whole process.
okay, that's understood, Mr. Sullivan. That's discussion on the motion. I don't think we needed a motion to open, but we have a motion in a second. So is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of reopening?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
You want to declare the time that we're reopening it?
The chair will declare the public hearing back open at 6:50. So tonight, go ahead, Mr.
No,
Sullivan.
go ahead. No, you.
If there's anyone here who would like to be heard for this hearing tonight, I'm going to ask that we try to contain ourselves to it being new information that we haven't already heard for ongoing legal issues that we're now, the town is being faced with. So if you have new information tonight that you'd like to offer, or another point you'd like to bring up that hasn't been brought up before. Yes, sir.
Can I approach the chair?
Sure.
I have a package for each of you.
Hi, John.
Thank you.
My name's John Breyer, 16 Flaxfield Road. I'm here as a private individual. I was out of town during the last public hearing, but I don't think any of these topics are actually covered during the last public hearing. So what I did is I have a two-page summary of a bunch of slides. If I had a PowerPoint, I'd use the PowerPoint, but and a projector, I don't. So if you take the first 2 pages, and then in the upper right-hand corner, there's like a number 1. And the quick points on like slide number 1, that first map is a DEP priority resource map. The blue lines indicate the flow of water into a designated existing aquifer area. by Mass DEP. The blue icons indicate recognized federal and state wetlands. And so the one thing about this particular parcel is it's one of the highest points. It's essential to the town's resources and water needs. As you can see, the green is an aquifer identified by Mass DEP, and the blue, all blue lines lead to that area. It's like all roads lead to Rome. So that's the one thing about this particular piece of land that I wanted to point out. The second slide are vernal pools. Now, the area in question has got one pond that the Bureau of Land Management and the EPA now claim is falling under the federal jurisdiction of the Clean Water Act. There is one vernal pool. Now, all these marks, these rectangles, that's actually issued by Mass DEP. That's not us or any third parties doing it. This is Mass DEP. So they've flagged a couple of areas there. There's one vernal pool earmarked as possible National Heritage and Endangered Species Program. There's an abutting vernal pool, which is over here, that actually has a star where actually endangered species have been found and documented. And then you've got an abutting vernal pool that the DEP also considers possible NHESP. And then the parcel is on the federal and state inventory of wetlands, and then, of course, the streams that we already discussed. So it's the whole area in particular, even beyond the property, is very environmentally sensitive. The next slide I have is a slide of the conservation land that the Conservation Land Trust actually has issued. And what I did there is I'm not a very good graphic artist, but I sort of put in where the new piece of land would abut. And you'll notice it abuts a whole bunch of other APR pieces of land. Now, the parcel, once it stays agricultural, in talking with some of the farmers in town, it actually becomes big enough to maybe actually do some good commercial agricultural operations there. Right now, by itself, it's pretty much a hayfield, all right? And as a hayfield, the going rate is like $40 to $50 per acre per season. But if you can get some, maybe work with the other APR land there and put out a proposal for maybe a 3 or 5 year bid, it's my understanding that there's some farmers in Woodstock that might be interested in a large piece like this. But by joining them with the others, all of a sudden you're getting scale where it becomes economically profitable for a good agricultural operation there. The next
John,
slide,
before you
sure.
leave that, all right, there's Jim Kepke is interested, and also the other farmer from Woodstock. Jim currently hays and corn plants corn on about 200 acres, but he needs more. As you know, he's adding beef cattle to his dairy herd. When I spoke with them about the land, just that land alone, of the 55.18 acres, they were interested in utilizing for agricultural purposes about 20 acres. And that would be a combination of slit seed, or conventional seed for corn, and haying. However, the proposal that was supposed to come through, but never did, would have, in Jim's opinion, blocked access from Corbin to the potential agricultural land, and would take up the driest acres of that property. And if that were to happen, it was his opinion that in a normal year, which this year was not in terms of rainfall and snow during the winter and spring, in a normal year, beyond that area, because everything slopes down in all three directions away from Corbin, he would not be interested in leasing that from the town, A, because of the blockage, and B, because of what's likely to be untillable for quite some time into a normal year. And that's in keeping with what you've got here for conservation land.
Exactly. And so, as we look at, we've had discussions about like the future of Dudley and, live, work, play kind of theme, between the work that the conservation, committee's doing, the Dudley Land Trust, the rail trail. I mean, a piece like this, even if all of it's not used, to maybe even make part of that available for community or residents, to maybe, plant some things there if they want. We're really building a nice foundation for recreational opportunities. What we do with the land afterwards, that's not really the point. The point is, they don't make land anymore. And once it's gone, it's gone. And this is a good piece, abutting other good pieces, where if agriculture is going to work, this is a good spot. The next slide I have, and this is really where we kind of get into the more important aspects of it, is the protection of the abutter wells. This piece is very rich in water, abundantly so. And I've heard that there's, probably about 40 private wells that are impacted. Now, the latest research done by the top scientists across the globe all agree that new cemeteries should have a 250-meter buffer from any private or public water source, well. And so even with those guidelines, you can see there's not a dry piece or a piece of this land that doesn't affect somebody's well there. And so, the protecting the lives and the clean water of the dozens of Dudley taxpayers and their families, their children, their grandchildren, there's a moral obligation to do that. Most people in town, they'll get caught up in reading the news and, never really kind of dig into the facts. But the facts is you have a lot of people's lives that are actually impacted by this piece of land. And, sometimes, a good neighbor steps up, even if they're personally unaffected, to help other neighbors that are just thrown into unfortunate situations. And this is one of those cases where it's clear that, you have the clean water of all of these people that's affected by this. And by the town taking ownership of it, they can ensure to continue to have clean water. And then the other part, which was really neat about this, and that's back in 1997, the water commissioners actually commissioned a study of a well on this piece of land. And the well still exists today. And I'm just going to highlight two things from the report. Initially, the well was to be drilled to a minimum of 700 feet. However, at a depth of 380 feet, the well produced too much water for the drilling equipment to evacuate it from the hole, and drilling could not proceed past this depth. The conclusion of the report was based on the results of the short-term pumping test and the water quality analytical results. We recommend that the site be pursued as a public drinking water supply. And then I just included some of the test results. Like land, water is one of our basic commodities, essential. And there's the consensus that more valuable than gold in the future will be water. And we can see it. We can see it with our neighborhoods, right? The droughts. We tend to have dry spells a little bit more often. Water is becoming a commodity. And so even if the current water department may not see a use for this, to sit on it for the next 50 or 75 years, probably not a bad investment. The one thing that I think all of us agree is no one should continue to hand problems down to their children or their grandchildren to fix. And right now, whether it's 50 or 100 years from now, someone's going to look back and say, we had an opportunity to buy a piece of land that was like California during the gold rush when it comes to water. And whether we use it for ourselves as an additional resource or lease it out to be sold to the world and get, I don't know, pennies per gallon or something like that. it's a good investment. It's something that the town should keep in the bank. The thing I don't like about, the negative side of purchasing the land is the cost. I mean, you can't even get a house to perk on that land.
Yep.
It's not going to happen.
Only on the front properties. Yeah.
And so, we're overpaying for the land based upon the agreement that they have. But, we're going to pay one way or the other. I mean, if something goes there, we have to rebuild the roads. That's going to cost a lot of money. We've got to widen things. And so, as a citizen and a taxpayer in Dudley, I'm willing to have my property taxes increased. And even if we do a private fundraising effort to help the town, once the town acquires it, to help maybe retire the debt a little earlier, willing to do that as well. But I think this is the time for all residents of Dudley to stand up, preserve something, invest in something for their children, and in the meantime, be good neighbors and help the other neighbors out that are affected. That's all I have to say.
John, don't go yet, please.
Greg, there was the water department weigh in on the water source up there at one point?
Yeah, I believe they did, and they indicated that there was an issue with the distance from the end of the pipeline and the fact that they were required to have a treatment plant, as I recall, in some regards.
Radon filter, I believe.
That's it.
A radon filter?
Kind of
Do we know
filter
why
system.
this test was conducted in 1997 to begin with?
I think at that time, the water department was very aggressively looking for different water
Additional sources, yeah.
Looked at 2 or 3 different sites.
They looked at that one. I know they looked at one down off of Mill Road. There were some areas, they were really aggressively trying to expand the water capacity. I think this was just a logical site. Like the gentleman that came in the first meeting that's lived in that neighborhood
Yep.
72 out of 75 years, he said it was well known to be, wet. We all know it's wet.
Mr. Fox?
I think it also occurred about the time when the Stevens Linen Mill was first purchased, that they were looking for more opportunities for town to have a
more
much stronger
capacity.
water supply in order to supply the mill.
Did we come to a conclusion with the water source availability on that piece of land through the other
The water
other
department
boards?
did.
Water department came in and said it wasn't viable.
Was not viable?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, since you're wisely keeping this public hearing open until the 8th, in my opinion, we need to resolve the difference between this original report, which I have seen, that said that the water flow was substantial, and the water department's preference not to go ahead, because this is extraordinarily significant in terms of potential use for the land. As I recall, the water department said that because of the radon, it could not be filtered, it had to be chemically treated, and that was at a substantial cost. And I'd like us to explore during the public hearing further information as to what that means, what chemicals, what's the solution, what's the cost, and what's the likelihood of it becoming ideal drinking water. So I'm hoping that we can do that before the closing of the hearing proposed for August 8th.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sullivan?
I think that's a good idea, Mr. Joseph. If they can have their engineer even come in and maybe do a brief presentation, if warranted. But don't forget, this test was in 1997, and as Mr. Breyer said, things have changed when it comes to water. Maybe the attitude or maybe the cost of whatever was being prohibitive before may not be quite as prohibitive this time around. Different board looks at it a different way, different results.
And 20 to 30 years from now,
Yeah, it could
just
be
think of
more.
how much, less those costs will be and more efficient they are in treating this stuff as the world runs out of clean water.
I gotta be honest with you, I said to the town administrator, when this first started, I said it'd be a perfect scenario if the water department was interested this time around. I mean, they have retained earnings, and it's something they can use, a long-term goal to get them more capacity.
One thing I think we need to make sure of going forward, no matter who comes, and this is a great presentation, great idea, we need to make sure that when people, if they get to the point where they're voting on buying this land, they're voting on an actual premise, a factual premise, not just different ideas as to what may happen with it, what could happen with it.
Yep.
We need to go forward one way or another, so somebody says no to it, or somebody says yes to it. They have all
yeah.
the facts in front of them.
Correct.
And that's
Which is
why
why
we
I'm
have
kind
to
of
know what
being
the
a-
cost is.
Right, we have to know what the cost is, but we also have to, that's why I'm being a pain in the neck about making sure that it's new information. We've heard the information about the groundwater and the wells before, presented slightly differently. I let it go tonight. But if we have 3 or 4 people who are saying it's a non-issue, we have to stop presenting that and move on to the next thing that could or could not be an issue. We've kicked this whole thing up a notch where we have to be spot on with everything we say here now. So,
Right, you know, Mr. Chair, too, not to beat a dead horse and, you know, things are going to play out the way they play out. It was brought up at like the first public hearing that there was a test well on this site, and that was something that we might be interested in. And the applicants were shocked. They had no idea there was a well there. Why would there be a test well there? And that concern or that potential avenue for us never makes it onto the public. Just, we get the angry editorials. They don't say, you know, like you say, due diligence, or like John says, protect the resource. All we get is angry editorials.
We have no hidden agenda in this. Our agenda is to be open, to be honest, to be fair, and to do what's in the best interest of Dudley.
That's all I care about.
The negative editorials are because other people, attorneys, have agendas that they preconceived that they're trying to pigeonhole us into. And that's why we're on the side of right. And I believe that to my depth of my soul. I believe that. We're on the right side.
we didn't finish your, Mr. Fox.
I will say this is an excellent presentation. It's got facts, it's got slides, it's very informative and certainly must be looked at.
Yeah, not bad for a rook.
No.
Great job,
we
Judge.
finish your
Good help.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He stewarded the planning board through some
Thank you, John.
stormy times.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Hi.
Hello, I'm Kathy Hurst, and I live on Camelot Circle.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, I've been here before. Just when I say jotted down a few notes, so you can see how scribbly I have done it. But one of the things I came across in the process of looking over many things over the past several months was a Dudley reconnaissance report.
Could you bring the mic a little bit more?
The Dudley reconnaissance report that was done back in June of 2007. And it's something that might be even on the town website, but it was brought together by the residents of Dudley were involved, as well as some town board members in deciding, or going over and deciphering what was historic and meaningful in the town of Dudley. And they applied to this Massachusetts Heritage Landscape Inventory Program, long title. But what it did was it just highlighted this. It's about a 49-page report, so I didn't copy it off, but I did email it to everyone on your board. And just to paraphrase a few parts of it, that it cited that Dudley was one of 22 communities within the National Heritage Corridor, linked by a common heritage of agriculture and industry powered by rivers and streams that dominated the landscape. And heritage landscapes are special places created by human interaction with the natural environment that help define the character of the community and reflect its past. So the town of Dudley, as all of you probably quite aware of, that was established in 1732. We have deep history, and that Dudley Hill was a site of even a pre-contact Native American village. So it's right from the colonial period well into the 19th century. Dudley's economy was mainly agrarian, dependent on dispersed farmlands, farmsteads, and mixed agricultural production, including dairying. And we know today that Jim Kopke's farm is the last dairy farm now. There used to be 31 dairy farms occupied a third of the town's agricultural land. But in the report, it says that concern for heritage landscapes is not new to Dudley. The town's master plan that was prepared in the year 2000 encompassed the incredible diversity and impact of heritage landscapes on community character as one of its goals. And I'm going to read the quote that's in the report. To preserve, enhance, and publicize the town's natural resources, agricultural resources, historic buildings and sites, unique cultural features, and significant views. There are a number of open spaces and open space corridors, and they were identified as being quite important to protect. In the section specifically under agricultural lands, calls for the preservation of agricultural landscapes and farming activities, agricultural-based economic opportunities, and work to protect and sustain agricultural businesses and farmlands. And it actually even cited under there, it says that the town would hope that they would prioritize parcels under Chapter 61A for future acquisition, acting on the town's right of first refusal in order to maintain these types of lands in our community. And one of the things I think that Mr. Breyer had brought up was about the agriculture preservation restriction area. And included in this report, right at the end, was an interesting map that I had never come across before, but it's a picture of Dudley, and there's all these different areas within the key that say which ones are for what sources, you know, and one of them was it's a diagonally, like a brown diagonal print over these areas. And I noticed it, and a lot of it is right off of Corbin Road area, where this agricultural preservation restriction areas have already been deemed to be noted on the historical map and on the register. And it's the property that almost encompasses that area, and including on the opposite side, so it's almost like a horseshoe around that whole area. And the area that the applicant was talking about is the only part that is in there. And I'm not an engineer, but to me it almost looked like some of it was overlapping, but I don't know for sure. But another thing I did find out today, and it's right on the Town of Dudley website, was that Hayden Pond Road is listed as a scenic road, as well as Marsh Road, I believe, or Hayden Pond Road. No,
Got to get signs up there if they are.
Right. So it says that's what there were 3 that were already designated. It's on the town website, and I just thought, well, gee, that's right, you know, on the way to that area. So all that land is, and it's right on the town website under scenic roads.
Yeah. Mr. Joyce.
On the website.
I'm not a rocket scientist, but she lives in Dudley. Kathy knows how to do research. Did we ever think about suggesting to her that she consider being one of our reps on the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission?
Well, maybe we just did.
Okay.
Well, I don't know.
Would you
That's
at
how
least,
they get you, Kath. They get you. They pull you
Yeah.
in little by
I
little.
know. I mean,
would you at least talk to her, Greg, about it?
Yeah.
last year I wouldn't have pictured myself sitting even at these meetings, but
Smart, good research, well-motivated, duh, you know? So please consider that.
So move.
But my last point that I was going to say, that at the end of that Dudley reconnaissance report, it says at the conclusion, and then again I'm quoting, these aren't my own words, it says, Dudley's residents have a strong sense of place defined by the town's varied natural features and the historic land use patterns that grew out of them. And so we would hope that Dudley would continue to protect the future of our town, and I believe that in purchasing this land, that would be one way to do it. And along with the people that I've been doing research with and conversing with, my teaching career pops out now and then, and I'm thinking of these word things that we used to do with the children, and where they'd write their name down and write words that would describe, for every letter there'd be something about that child. But I was thinking of the word protect, and as you go down from the word protect, PR, the P would stand for preserve the resources of our town of Dudley today to ensure them for all of our children's tomorrow. And I think that should be our motto. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy, very much. Again. That's a no-brainer. Huh?
Is there anyone else tonight? Mrs. Sansucci.
Mary Sansucci from Ramshorn Road. We've talked about this just briefly, but the State Department of Agriculture in Massachusetts thought enough of this land to put a restricted covenant on it for 10 years to keep it in agriculture, and they used $50,000 of our taxpayer money to give to a former owner to see that it stayed in agriculture. They won't stand behind it. It's unfortunate, but the state doesn't hand this money out lightly. And it's just such good ag land that should be preserved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else tonight?
Chair, make a motion that we continue the public hearing?
Well, that's already been made. The motion was made to open it and continue it through August 8th,
And it passed.
and it passed.
Let's reaffirm it.
So what we can do is to end tonight's portion of the public hearing, but it does not end the hearing, which will continue to August 8th.
If you want to withdraw your motion.
No, that's fine. Just do reconfirm it.
So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank everybody tonight for coming. You all set, Mr. Flynn?
Nice job, everybody.
You good?
No, I have no information.
Okay, all right. Okay, moving on to the next thing. Licensing and permits. Nichols College, Kathy Champagne Conference and Events Manager for an outdoor orchestra entertainment license on Saturday, July 30th. This is from our previous agenda, correct? We needed further information?
It's appropriate that a person named Champagne is here for this reason.
Well, thank you. Hi, I'm Kathy Champagne from Nichols College, Conference and Event Manager. This is my supervisor, Bob Levine. He's the Associate Vice President for Facilities Management.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening, sir.
So we understand there were some further questions that they were just looking for some answers to?
Right. I was going to say, it didn't officially make the agenda, but they knew they were coming in for some questions, right?
Correct. I think there was a time frame issue.
No, there was some issue too with the email we got.
There was.
You want to do the permit first? Get the questions out of the way on the permit?
Yeah, I think the permit is appropriate, and then any other issues follow that.
Okay.
Kath, want to tell us a little bit about your application, or?
Yes, I reached out to the group to get some further information regarding their activities for the weekend. It was explained to me that in the morning, they'll play a radio out in the area that they're going to have tents set up on the Chamois Quadrangle, just as like a clock radio to wake up the campers. It won't be on an amplification system or anything. It'll just be a radio playing in the area. They'll have morning announcements on Saturday to get the bikers off. They're going to go on in 10-minute intervals leaving campus for bike rides in the area. And then in the afternoon, they're going to do some live entertainment on the Copper Beach Quad. So they'll have live entertainment on Saturday until 5 p.m. I think it's 3 to 5 p.m., they actually told me. And then on Sunday, it'll be the same thing without announcements. They won't be sending the bikers out, so they'll have a radio playing in the morning as their clock radio. And then they'll also have some live entertainment from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on Sunday evening. and those are what the outdoor activities include.
Two things.
Mr. Joseph.
One is, under the current president, Nichols has been an outstanding member of the community in many ways. Two, we've had issues in the past.
Yes.
So I would ask that whatever motion is made lists the times, the dates and the times, because they're not on the original application, they are attached. But I'd like that to be part of the motion so that the neighbors' expectations are in line with what Nichols is planning on doing.
So we have an 8:30 stop time.
8:30 for the announcements for bikers. So they told me that they'll start playing the radio at 6:30 a.m. to 7:15, and it'll be I'll be there to manage the sound. I will be on campus the whole time. They're using the systems to play any kind of music or make any announcements. Okay. That'll be both mornings. So that's to get the campers awake. And usually they said they used to just have like a car door open playing music. We'll put a radio instead of having a car door open.
Okay.
And then announcements will start at 8:30 a.m. till about 10:30. And then they'll have live entertainment on the Copper Beach Quad from 3 to 5 p.m. on Saturday. And Sunday, they will have the morning music, same time, 6:30 to 7:15. And then live entertainment on the Copper Beach Quad from 7 to 8:30 p.m.
Okay. Well, the chair will accept the motion on.
So what's the motion you'll accept?
A motion to approve with the times listed.
Go ahead. What's the motion you'll accept?
Motion to accept the application from Nichols College, Kathy Champagne presenting on the dates,
Saturday, July 30th.
July 30th.
Saturday, July 30th, with the times noted, and Sunday, July 31st, 2016, with the times noted.
We're going to actually do a license?
We have one.
All right. Do we have the times on the license or the ending time?
We will.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second. Third.
Seconded by Mr. Fox. Is there further discussion on the motion?
Can you vote on this?
Yeah, no alcohol.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
all set.
All right, now the questions, Kat, that we had.
Yes.
First two, I want to just clarify a point that was at the last meeting. We got an email from a resident that had indicated they had an issue with one of your camps,
Yes.
and they indicated in their email they contacted the police department and were told, contact Nichols. Well, I spoke to the police chief, he did further research, he didn't have it that night, and he said there was no call that night from the resident. So I'm
No
not
call
sure.
recorded?
No call logged in.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if the email person had the wrong date, or, I'm not sure, but I kind of put the police chief in a bind that night. We didn't have any pre-notice, but he did look into it, and it was no call. So my questions were, these camps that you referred to them as camps, and I know the summer's probably half over. How often do you guys run these camps? How big are they?
So we have camps and conferences throughout the summer. They've fallen under facilities management for the past 6 years. They've been going on a lot longer than that, but for the past 6 years, they've fallen under our department. Over the past 6 years, we average about 11 overnight conferences a summer. They start up after commencement, and they end before early arrivals come back to campus. Average size is about 70 to 80 people, some larger, some smaller. We're mostly trying to keep the groups in line with the mission of the college, bring in youth groups, things like that, athletic camps. We have a variety of different camps and groups that come through, some that have been coming for years and years, and
Right.
some that are newer.
Now, the scope of the facilities, Bob, you guys use, is it restricted to one end of campus? Do they kind of go down the
It really depends. For the most part, because they're overnight, they'll be on the southern end of campus where the residence halls are.
Right.
For example, right now we have a all
Girls soccer camp.
girls soccer camp in 70, 80?
90 high school age girls. They're using the athletic fields during the day. They stay in the residence halls at night. They go up sometimes for evening activities, but they have an 11 o'clock curfew, and they're back in their halls.
So the sports camps tend to be on the southern end of the campus. If we bring in educational groups, they tend to use the academic side, which is the northern side.
Right.
But again, they're in the residence hall, so they're up and down Center Road. So it
Right.
really depends. But the majority of the groups are youth-based, education, leadership-based, things like that.
Okay, because I think the issue, and the email person, I think she spoke to you, right?
She did. She called me, and then
said
I
you get
actually
back
got
to
the email a few minutes later from Lynn Luby. After she called me and I talked to her and told her I would talk to the group and resolve the issue, the email went to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, because it seems like, I didn't talk to her, I was in the email string, if people can believe it. It's the scope of the traveling, I guess, they were
By a residential house on our
I
campus,
understand they're
right?
probably the only one in that
Yes.
location.
Yeah.
So was that like a more isolated incident? I mean, if you have 90 high school age kids, I'm pretty sure they're not going to be walking up Center Road at quarter
No,
to
they're
12.
generally not out in the evenings, and they generally do travel as a group, most of the camps that come through, so that is the issue. When you hear a group of people go by your house at night,
Right.
it does sound rather loud.
Right. So I guess you guys communicate with residents more than I do on stuff like this. Is this isolated? Do we have more complaints?
This was the only complaint we had gotten this summer on anything that we'd had going on. A couple years back, we had a band camp on campus, and we agreed not to have them back. They were a marching band, and they were very loud, so.
I hear them practicing in my house.
Yeah, yeah. So, but other than that, we haven't had any complaints. I actually talked to the resident personally a few times about this and told her I was addressing things. This was not a group that was outside. They were actually in a building, and with the heat, they just had the doors and windows open of the building, and it was just carrying.
Yes, 'cause the email made it seem like they had traversed in front of their house.
They were using Davis Hall, which is one of our academic buildings, and they were in the auditorium, which is two buildings down from the resident's house. So they were going back and forth to the two buildings.
They were using two buildings flanking either side of the residence.
Right.
So transversing back and forth to those facilities was part of the problem.
Right.
And Michelle, we haven't heard from that resident again with any other issues that we know of?
Not me.
Not our
All right,
office?
nope.
Right. Okay.
All right, have we voted on this motion?
Yep, it's all set.
We all done?
Yep.
Just have to sign it?
Thank you guys for coming in, too.
Thank
Thank
you.
It was signed, but what
Thank
we
you.
did do is add the hours.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
This is another
Okay.
thing to sign, it has nothing to do with the agenda.
Thank you.
Public business, 2016 state primary warrant for us to sign.
So we've begun our election countdown. The state primary warrant is going to be held on the 8th of September between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. You have a copy of the warrant, and I have a copy here for your signature.
Signed at the last meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, make a motion that we have to vote on it tonight, Greg?
We do.
Make a motion that we approve the election warrant as presented tonight
By the town clerk?
on behalf of the town clerk.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sullivan, seconded by Mr. Fox. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. And again, Mr. Chair, that's for the September 8th, 2016 election.
You also have an MOA while we're signing that.
Mr. Chair, make a motion that we sign the MOA as presented regarding Town of Dudley and the Dudley Police Officers Association for a duration of 3 years, July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Sullivan, seconded by Mr. Fox. Is there discussion?
Just want to thank the town administrator. He took the lead on this, and from all feedback I received, I think everybody was quite happy with
I'd
the
like
process.
to make two observations.
Mr. Joseph.
One is I'm glad that year 2 and year 3 do not contain any raises exceeding the Prop 2.5 level. And I draw attention to the fact that the agreement also includes that there be automatic vehicle locators, which will enable the dispatch to know where our cruisers are in case anything happens to any one of the officers during a transmission or an incident, and I'm grateful for that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Unanimous? It's making its way down now. As we're signing, do we have any board member comments?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, as many of you know, Dudley is a good place to live, real good place. And we have just concluded the fellowship meals for the summer. The last one we did was last Wednesday. We had over 120 people come in, including a number of homeless people. The meals will continue starting on September 7th, and they will be the first and third Wednesday of every month. But I have a particular issue that I want to bring to people's attention. We have a homeless veteran who lives in Dudley. About a year ago, out of state, he tragically lost his wife. Since that time, he's been living, I won't say exactly where, but it's not in a house or a home. He works part-time. He saved up as much money as he could. Why? Because he saw an ad in the Webster Times for an apartment in Dudley where he wants to stay for $675 a month. He has been living, and I've been there, he's been living in the shed of a Dudley resident with their permission. They now need that shed. He has to leave. So the group of people who have called themselves the Blessed Backpack Brigade got him and gave him a tent. And he's going to live there because he can't afford the apartment right now, even though he's working part-time. But those people in that Blessed Brigade have hooked him up with an employer who looks like it may end up in a full-time job. I will tell you, and I'll vouch for this, the man does not drink. He does not take drugs. He's a middle-aged veteran. He has many skills. He goes to church locally more than once a week, every week. Very recently, the money he saved, all of it, was stolen out of the shed. So he has to start over, saving money for an apartment. Why was it in the shed? Because he doesn't have a legal residence. He can't get a bank account without a legal residence. So he kept the money hidden in his shed, and it's gone. When some people found out about this, they posted it on that Backpack Brigade's website, and our former treasurer, Carol Barron, said, I will give you, because he needs $1,800 first, last, and whatever, not even counting what he has to replace. Carol Barron said, I'm going to give you $100, a check for $100. And I challenge other people to match it. She said, now you only need $1,700. So my wife and I read that, and we're matching her $100. So now we got it down to $1,600. So what I'm going to suggest is, if anyone would like to help us get this man back on track so he doesn't have to ride a bike and he can get a legal address, you can contact one of the two leaders of the Blessed Backpack Brigade. That's our town assessor, Lisa Berg, and you can give her a check. You can give her cash, we trust her, but they would feel better if you gave them a check. So I'm hoping we can find 16 other people that will match Carol Barron's donation so we can take care of this guy. He's not from Webster, he's not from Southbridge, he's not from Webster, from Worcester. He lives here in Dudley. Not in a house, but he lives here in Dudley in a tent right now. So let's do what we can, and I appreciate the time, because I've met this man several times. He's just a good person. But thank you for that, and God bless all of you.
I just want to say mine pales with comparison to Mr. Joseph. The highway department's out there paving and full bore, doing what they can. It happened again in Boston the other day. A guy was driving intoxicated, and he hit a wall, and then he hit a construction piece of equipment. Thankfully, we haven't had that happen in Dudley yet, but our guys are out there. We had one guy a couple years ago get attacked by a resident. The guy hit him with his car. Just keep your eyes on the road. You know, the texting and driving and the cell phone, it's out there, but they were doing Northwest Schoolhouse last week, and I mean, anybody's been out on that road, it's a
That's
tough road.
tricky.
Just keep your eyes open, and I'm sure the highway department and the police officers appreciate it.
Forgive me, you just said something. Oh, I forget this. Less than 2 months ago, the guy I was talking about was hit by a hit-and-run driver. Bounced around, went to the hospital, he has 4 broken ribs. So it just hasn't gone well for this guy, you know? It just hasn't gone well for him. I'm sorry I forgot that part.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I was contacted by a neighbor and a friend of mine about a large dead tree that was overlooking Schofield Avenue. It was right near Ramco Construction Company. She contacted the highway department, who handled her complaint professionally. She commented about how nice the people that answered her questions were to her. They referred her to a state office. She called the state office. The state office did call her back at her house and said that they would take care of the problem. They would take care of it this week. Tree came down today.
Cool.
And that lady was absolutely thrilled, and she wants to thank the Dudley Highway Department as well as the employees from the state. And my second portion is, Mr. Joseph, my wife Betsy and I will be more than glad to pledge $100.
Thank you very much, Peter. That's typical of you and Betsy. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, Greg, is anything about the beach in your report before I
There's
do
been
my-
no incidents to the best of my knowledge.
Yep.
It's been pretty widely publicized, as you know, on the town's website, Twitter, and Facebook. The comments that we've gotten back from residents have been positive. I've dropped by there a couple times. Things seem to be calm. However, there've been a number of tickets and warnings that were issued, and that's where the rubber will hit the road, is whether the people actually end up paying those citations. But there is signage that's there. I drove by today to make sure it had not been removed. It was
too.
there, as large as life.
Yep.
And you really can't miss it when you pull into the parking lot. It's there. And again, things seem to be operating.
And so we're going to have a more concrete plan for next year in terms of
Yeah.
rules of the road.
Yeah,
and so-
I think some type of way of establishing, rather than the police department running registrations, which is time-consuming, some type of placard system or sticker system that was suggested might work well. I don't see us in a position, our beach operates on a budget of $8,300 a year. I don't see us charging fees unless the board feels that it wants to increase services. But the fact that we can offer a free beach to residents is to everyone's advantage.
So I received a few inquiries about faculty being able to park back there and from Mason Road and so forth. And I told them that the
Call the police.
will handle that with discretion. I don't see any problem with faculty being able to park at Mason Road, do you?
Nor do I. I see no issues with it whatsoever.
Good, because I would hate there to be an issue after I said there wouldn't be
There
one.
wouldn't be an issue.
That's it for me. The Town Administrator's report.
Yeah, so I just want to give you an update. I gave you a copy of the June 30th revenue report. It's in my report, and on the receipt side, we ended up to the positive of about $400,000, and that's kind of indicative of the fact that the budget that the board approved had some conservative revenue assumptions. And the strongest revenue categories were motor vehicle excise tax, which is increased, tax title and lien redemptions, and miscellaneous revenues. So the overall picture on the revenue side was positive, which is always good. When the town completes its balance sheet in the month of September, then these numbers will be put on that balance sheet. And the balance sheet is what gets submitted to the Department of Revenue and certifies free cash. It's not just simply a matter of taking this number. It's receipts and any debits or charges against it. The other noteworthy item is, as you recall, when the board approved its end-of-year 3% transfers, I indicated that we had a substantial payment that was due to the utility companies. And as I've discovered, in reconciling those accounts, we are due a substantial credit. And that substantial credit will help us for this year, because it means that we'll have money that can be freed up and used for other purposes, or more importantly, not spent at all. I will be back in touch with you when we have an actual final number to negotiate.
Great. Good.
Good news.
Okay?
What is
That's
that,
it
what
for
is
your
that
oppo-
number?
Big.
Okay.
You're all set?
Big enough to
More than $1?
more than $1.
Okay.
But I don't want to divulge it because we're on public TV, and if the number's not correct, I'll be held to it.
That's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to move we adjourn.
No departmental
There's nobody here.
communication tonight. Motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Fox. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you all.